The starship Aurora Dawn slid quietly through the black ocean of space, its silver hull reflecting the light of distant suns. Inside the ship, hundreds of humans moved through narrow white hallways, preparing for one of the most important diplomatic missions in history. For the first time in many years, the humans had been invited to the Royal Star Station, home of the ruling family of a powerful alien empire known as the Lyrian Dominion. Eli Carter was not a soldier. He was not a politician. He was just a young engineer from a quiet town on Earth. He worked with power systems and communication lines. He was good with machines, but not so good with formal speech. His friends called him friendly, but a little too casual. When the captain told him he'd be part of the engineering crew on this mission, he thought it was going to be boring, just fixing things. In the background, while the diplomats did the talking, he didn't know that fate had something else in store for him. The ship slowed as it approached the shining station. The Royal Star Station was massive, almost the size of a small moon. It looked like a ring of light, with towers rising into the sky, glowing with soft blue and gold colors. It was beautiful and intimidating at the same time. The Lyrians were known for their strict traditions, their royal bloodlines, and their dislike for casual behavior. Humans had only recently signed a peace agreement with them. Trust was still fragile. When the ship docked, Eli followed the engineering team. Their job was to make sure power lines and connection systems worked properly between the ship and the station. He walked through the large gates, trying not to stare too much. The inside of the station was breathtaking. High ceilings arched like cathedrals, with flowing lights that looked like rivers in the air. The air smelled faintly of flowers and something sweet like honey. "Keep your head down," Carta, his team leader, whispered. "We're guests here, and this is the royal station. Don't mess anything up." "I won't," Eli said softly. Though his heart was beating fast, the Lyrian guards stood tall and silent on both sides of the hall. They were elegant but strong, their skin a soft silver with faint blue patterns that looked like moving light. Their golden eyes seemed to follow every human who walked by. Eli tried not to look nervous. He just focused on his job, after their work was finished. The team was allowed to walk through the public sections of the station. Eli loved exploring new places. He had grown up near forests, and he liked quiet green spaces. That's why the moment he heard about the Garden Dome, he decided to take a walk there during his short break. The Garden Dome was located on the top level of the station. When Eli stepped through the sliding doors, his breath caught. It was like stepping into a dream. Giant crystal windows showed the stars outside. Soft artificial sunlight filled the air. The ground was covered with living plants, colorful flowers, tall trees with glowing leaves, and small streams of clear water. Birds, or something that looked like birds, flew between branches, their feathers sparkling faintly. For a moment, Eli forgot he was on a royal station. He forgot about rules and politics. He just felt peace. He walked slowly, listening to the quiet sound of flowing water. He bent down to touch a strange flower that smelled like cinnamon. Then he stood and kept walking down a narrow path, lined with glowing white stones. He didn't notice the royal guards at first. They appeared so suddenly that he almost walked into them. Two tall Lyrian guards stepped in front of him, their long golden spears crossed. Eli froze. His mind went blank. He realized he had walked into a restricted area without even knowing. I'm sorry. Eli's. Tam. They just stood silently, their faces unreadable. He could feel their golden eyes on him like cold sunlight. Then, from behind the guards, a soft, calm voice spoke. "It's all right. Let him through." The guards immediately uncrossed their spears and stepped aside. Eli's heart jumped when he saw her. She walked out from behind a curtain of golden flowers. She moved with quiet grace, like a breeze of wind over water. She was wearing a long, flowing robe made of white and blue silk-like fabric that shimmered as she moved. Her silver skin reflected the light of the dome. Her eyes were bright, a soft glowing violet, and her hair long and shining, moved as if floating in slow motion. Eli had never seen someone like her before. She was Princess Lyra, the heir of the Lyrian Empire. Of course, Eli didn't know that. No one had told him who might be in the garden. He just saw a beautiful woman with a calm face, walking among flowers like she belonged to them. The guards watched him carefully, expecting him to kneel or speak formally. But Eli was too nervous to think. His mouth moved before his brain could stop it. "Hey, sweetie." The word slipped out like a clumsy feather falling from the sky. The two guards stiffened. One of them almost stepped forward. Eli felt his face turn pale. His stomach twisted. He realized what he had just said to what was clearly someone important. But what happened next shocked everyone. Princess. Lyra's violet eyes widened in surprise. For a second, she froze like a statue. Then her cheeks turned soft pink, a color Eli didn't know Lyrians could even make. Among Lyrians, that was a sign of embarrassment. No one ever spoke to the princess like that. She was used to being called Your Grace, Your Radiance, or my princess. And now, out of nowhere, a young human engineer had just called her sweetie. Lyra blinked. And then, unexpectedly, a small sound escaped her lips. She laughed. It was not a cold or royal laugh. It was warm, light, and a little shaky. She covered her mouth with her hand, as if surprised by herself. She couldn't remember the last time she had laughed without permission. "Yes, darling," she said softly. Eli's jaw dropped. He didn't know whether to run or faint, but something about the way she said it, shy and curious, made him smile nervously. A small, awkward laugh escaped from him too. And somehow, in the middle of the garden, surrounded by silent guards, both of them began laughing. It wasn't loud or wild. It was the kind of laugh that comes when something unexpected breaks the heavy air. The guards didn't know what to do. Lyrians were not supposed to behave this way with humans. But Princess Lyra raised a hand slightly, signaling them to relax. Their eyes softened, and they lowered their spears. Lyra took a slow step toward Eli. Her voice was gentle. "You're a human," "Yes," Eli said quickly, still feeling like an idiot. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean I didn't know." She tilted her head slightly, her silver hair glowing in the sunlight. "You didn't know who I am?" Eli shook his head. "No, ma'am. I just saw someone standing there. I'm really sorry if I said something wrong." Her lips curved slightly upward. "You called me sweetie?" Eli covered his face with his hands for a second. "Yeah, I did. I'm sorry. That was stupid." But instead of being offended, she laughed again. This time, it was a little louder, a little freer. "No one has ever called me that before," she said softly. "Not even my friends? You have friends?" Eli asked before thinking, then froze again. Sorry, that was rude too. But she just smiled. "I have people who follow me. I have people who obey me. But friends?" She shook her head slowly. "No, I don't think so." Eli lowered his hands. She didn't seem angry. In fact, she looked curious. Her violet eyes shone like the stars outside. He relaxed a little. "I'm Eli," he said quietly. "Eli," she repeated as if tasting the sound. "I am Lyra." "Nice to meet you, Lyra," he said. He didn't use her title. He didn't even know it. The princess looked at him strangely, as if no one had ever just said her name like that before. For years, people had bowed, kneeled, and spoken carefully around her. But this human just stood there, nervous but honest. She liked it. "You have a strange way of speaking," she said. Eli scratched the back of his neck. "Yeah, people tell me that a lot." They stood in silence for a few seconds. Then Lyra asked, "Why'd you come here?" Eli blinked. "I work on the human ship. I was just walking. I like plants. This place is beautiful." Lyra glanced around the garden as if seeing it through new eyes. "I come here every day. But I've never heard anyone call it beautiful." He tilted his head. "Really?" "Yes," she said softly. "It is a royal garden. It's meant to be perfect. But no one talks about it. They only bow." Lee looked at her carefully. There was something in her voice, a quiet loneliness. She was a princess, but she sounded like someone who didn't have anyone to just talk to. He could feel it. She was surrounded by people, Still alone. I guess beauty doesn't mean much if no one enjoys it with you, Eli said without thinking. Her eyes widened slightly. No one had ever spoken to her like that. Not even the royal advisors. She felt a warm feeling in her chest, something she had almost forgotten. Lyra slowly walked closer until she was standing right in front of him. The guards watched carefully but did not stop her. She stood a little shorter than Eli. The sunlight from the crystal ceiling painted soft lines on her silver skin. She looked into his brown eyes and said, "You speak without fear." Eli laughed nervously. "I'm actually terrified." She tilted her head again, studying him. "You hide it well," he shrugged. "I just say stupid things sometimes." "They are not stupid," she whispered. "They are real." Those words hung in the air like a soft note of music. For a moment, the whole station seemed to disappear. It was just them, a human engineer and an alien princess, standing in a garden, smiling at each other. But outside that moment, whispers had already begun to spree. The next few days on the Royal Star Station felt different to Eli Carter. He went back to his usual engineering tasks, checking power conduits, repairing small connection panels, and running signal checks for the human ship. But no matter what he was doing, a soft image stayed in his mind, the moment when the alien princess had smiled at him and said, "Yes, darling." He thought maybe it had been a strange accident. Maybe she was just being polite. Maybe she had already forgotten about it. After all, she was a princess, and he was just a regular human engineer. People like him didn't belong in royal gardens. But deep inside, something told him it wasn't over. On the fourth day, when the work shift ended, he returned to his tiny sleeping cabin on the ship. The cabin was simple. One bed, a small desk, and a window that showed the dark space outside. As he sat on the bed, tired, his wrist communicator suddenly made a soft chime. A glowing blue symbol appeared on the small screen. He frowned. He had never seen that symbol before. It wasn't from the ship. He pressed it carefully. A soft, calm voice spoke. "Eli Carter. Would you meet me in the Stellar Conservatory tonight?" "Come alone." Eli froze. He knew that voice. He could never forget it. Princess Lyra. For a moment, he didn't know what to do. His heart pounded in his chest. Was it some kind of mistake? Was it a trap? Or was it really her? He whispered to himself, "This is insane." But after a few minutes of sitting alone, he smiled faintly. "Well," he said softly, "why not?" The Stellar Conservatory was a quiet, hidden place on the upper levels of the station. It wasn't open to the public. From what little Eli had heard, it was a place where members of the royal family sometimes went to watch the stars in silence. It was known for having a glass ceiling so clear that it felt like floating in space. At exactly 21 o'clock hours, Eli arrived at the entrance. He wore his simple gray engineer uniform. He had no special clothes. He had no guards. Only his nervous heartbeat. 2 royal guards were standing outside the conservatory. Their golden eyes scanned him carefully. One of them spoke in a deep voice, "Eli Carter. You have been granted permission to enter. You must not bring weapons. You must not make loud movements." Ali raised his hands awkwardly. "I don't even have a hairbrush." "Aye." The guard didn't laugh. But after a second, he stepped aside. Eli walked slowly through the wide doors. And when he stepped inside, he stopped. The room was beautiful. The entire ceiling was made of crystal glass. Billions of stars spread across the darkness above him like diamonds scattered over black velvet. The floor was made of smooth silver metal, and soft blue light filled the air. In the center of the room was a glowing white tree, its leaves floating gently as if moved by an invisible wind. It gave the place a soft, peaceful feeling. And under that tree stood Lyra. She was dressed differently tonight. Instead of the royal robe, she wore a simple silver dress that allowed her hair to fall freely over her shoulders. She didn't look like the distant princess he had seen in the garden that day. She looked like a young woman who wanted to be herself. When she saw him, she smiled softly. "You came." Eli scratched the back of his neck. "Yeah. I thought maybe it was a mistake." "It wasn't," she said. He took a few steps forward. Why me? Lyra's violet eyes shimmered in the soft light. Because, she said slowly, you spoke to me like no one else has ever dared. Eli opened his mouth, then closed it again. I didn't mean to offend you. You didn't offend me, she whispered. You made me. Laugh. She walked closer, her steps silent against the floor. All my life, everyone around me has spoken carefully. They kneel. They look at me like I am something above them. But you! She tilted her head slightly, smiling gently. You called me sweetie. He laughed nervously. Yeah, not my best moment. No, she said softly. It was real. For a long moment they stood under the tree, surrounded by the quiet of the stars. Eli could feel the weight of what was happening, but also something warm. He wasn't just talking to a princess. He was talking to a person who had never known simple friendship. Lyra slowly sat down on the smooth, silver floor and patted the space next to her. Sit. Eli hesitated, but then sat beside her. They both leaned back slightly, looking up at the endless stars through the glass ceiling. They look so close, Eli whispered. Lyra nodded. I used to come here when I was a child. I wanted to leave the station. I wanted to fly to the stars and see what was out there. But my life was already chosen for me. What do you mean? I was born as the heir, she said softly. Every step of my life is decided by the council. They choose what I eat, what I wear, what I learn, even who I will marry. Eli's chest felt tight. She said it so calmly, but he could hear the sadness beneath the words. I thought being a princess was supposed to be magical, he said quietly. She smiled faintly. It looks magical from far away, but when you live inside it, it's a cage made of shining walls. Eli didn't know what to say. He wasn't someone with fancy words. So, he just said the truth. That sounds lonely. It is, she whispered. Silence filled the room again, but it wasn't an uncomfortable silence. It was gentle, like two people sitting next to each other on a quiet night. Then Lyra turned to him and said, Tell me about your world. Eli blinked. My world? Yes, Earth. He smiled slowly. It's messy, loud, and beautiful. We have forests and mountains and oceans. We have too many rules, but we also have freedom to break them sometimes. She tilted her head. Freedom. He nodded. Yeah, people can choose who they want to be. We make mistakes. A lot of them. But we also build, explore, dream. I stared at the stars. Dream, she repeated softly. I haven't dreamed in a long time. Eli leaned back, resting on his elbows. Then maybe it's time you start again. She turned to look at him, surprised. No one had ever told her that before. She had always been told what her dreams should be, not what she wanted them to be. They talked for hours. Eli told her about sitting under Earth's night sky with friends, roasting simple food, laughing over bad jokes. Lyra told him about her childhood, how she used to hide in the garden at night, pretending she was a traveler, not a princess. How she built small paper stars and threw them into the air at some point. Lyra asked him softly, When you called me sweetie? Did you mean it? Eli's face turned red. I didn't even know you were a princess. I just said it. It slipped out. She smiled. But you didn't say it like you say it to everyone. Eli looked at her shyly. I guess not. She lowered her eyes for a moment. No one has ever spoken to me like that. Then maybe they should have, Eli said gently. Her heart warmed at his words. It was strange. She had met hundreds of diplomats, admirals and council leaders, but none of them had made her feel this kind of peace. But outside the conservatory, not everyone was happy. Deep inside the royal council chamber, voices rose like a storm. Unacceptable, shouted one of the elders. A human engineer speaking to the princess without permission? This is a disgrace. Another voice, calmer but firm, added, If this continues, it will weaken the respect for the royal line. We must act. Some members tried to be reasonable, but the princess is smiling for the first time in years. One councilwoman said softly, She is the heir, another snapped. She is not a child to play with off-worlders. As the council argued, the Emperor himself sat quietly on the high seat, listening. He had seen his daughter grow behind walls of protocol. He had seen her smile disappear as she grew older. And now, because of one human, she was laughing again. That thought stayed in his mind like a quiet echo in the conservatory. Lyra and Eli were still talking when the glowing lights above slowly dimmed the station's way of signaling it was late. Lyra sighed softly. I should go. Eli felt a small ache in his chest. He didn't want the moment to end. Yeah, me too. But as she stood, she suddenly looked nervous. Eli, there's something I must tell you. He stood too. What is it? She took a small step closer, her violet eyes soft and serious. The council will not like this. They do not like humans. They will try to stop me from seeing you. Eli felt a cold weight in his stomach. Why? Because you make me feel free, she whispered. He didn't know what to say. The way she said it made his chest tighten again. She reached into the folds of her dress and took out a small silver crystal. It glowed faintly in her palm. This is a personal communicator. If they stop me from leaving my chamber, I can still talk to you. Eli took it carefully. Lyra, I'm just an engineer. I can't fight an empire. She smiled softly. I'm not asking you to fight. I'm asking you not to disappear. He held the small crystal tightly and nodded. I won't. Her smile grew brighter. Good. Then, before leaving, she looked back at him one more time. Good night, sweetie. Eli laughed quietly, shaking his head. Good night, darling. And just like that, the air around them felt warm again. The next morning, everything changed. A formal message appeared on the human ship's communication panel. It was a royal notice. All human personnel must remain in assigned areas. Access to the Garden Dome and upper royal levels is now restricted. This is a matter of royal security. Eli stared at the screen, his heart sinking. He knew why they were doing this. The council wanted to keep Lyra and him apart. Later that day, while working in the ship's power room, his communicator, the crystal she gave him, pulsed softly. Her voice came through, quiet but firm. They locked me in my chamber. I'm not allowed to leave. But I can still talk to you?